Welcome to Pillow Talk Dreams, where every night becomes a story and every story leads you to peace. If you love calm voices, gentle journeys, and stories that help you drift into dreams, then don't forget to subscribe and let your nights be a little softer. Now close your eyes and let the story begin.
The quiet station. The night was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels like a sigh from the earth itself. Snow drifted softly over the small mountain station, where a single lantern swayed in the winter wind. The air smelled faintly of pine and smoke, and the sound of a distant train echoed through the valley like a memory. An old samurai stood beneath the lantern's glow. His cloak, worn from years of travel, was touched with flakes of white. His sword, sheathed in dark wood, rested at his side, more a memory than a weapon now. His hair had turned silver long ago, and his eyes carried the weight of seasons that had passed too quickly. He did not wait for anyone. He had no student to follow him, no lord to command him, no war to fight. Tonight he waited only for the train. The old station master, a kind man with hands roughened by time, glanced at him with quiet respect. "Long night for a journey," he murmured. The samurai bowed his head slightly. "All nights are long when the heart is heavy," he replied softly. The station master smiled faintly, not understanding the full depth of the words but feeling their truth. He poured tea from a small kettle and handed the cup to the traveler. The steam rose gently, carrying the faint scent of jasmine. As the samurai lifted the cup, his hands trembled slightly, not from the cold, but from age and the slow unraveling of strength that time demands from all men. He looked down the track. The rails glimmered faintly in the moonlight, stretching into the fog like a road to nowhere. The mountains beyond were hidden by clouds, their shapes soft and ghostly. He thought of the years he had spent climbing those mountains, the battles fought, the oaths sworn, the people lost. Once the world had been filled with the sound of swords and drums. Now it was filled with the hum of trains and the soft whisper of the wind. The old samurai smiled faintly. The world changes, he thought, but silence remains the same. The train arrived without fanfare, only the low hum of its engine breaking the stillness. Its lights cut through the snow like warm candles glimmering on the icy platform. The samurai stepped forward. His footsteps were slow, each one leaving a clear mark on the snow, only to fade moments later as more flakes fell. When the doors opened, warm air flowed out, carrying with it the faint smell of wood, coal, and distant tea leaves. He stepped inside and found an empty seat beside the window. The car was quiet. Only the soft rattle of the train and the low hum of its motion filled the air. The other passengers were few. A mother cradling a sleeping child, a young man with paint-stained hands, and a sleeping merchant whose hat had tilted over his eyes. The samurai placed his sword gently across his knees, as one might lay a memory to rest. He looked out the window. The snow-covered trees drifted past in slow motion, their shapes blurring into one another. The reflection of his face in the glass merged with the passing landscape, one fading into the other. He breathed deeply, closing his eyes. The rhythm of the train began to lull him, a steady heartbeat of iron and time. Each sound carried him backward through the years, to the fields of battle, the halls of lords, the laughter of friends long gone. He could still hear the faint sound of her voice, soft, like the ringing of wind chimes in the summer breeze. Her name was Eiko, and though decades had passed since she last spoke his name, the memory of her smile had never left him. The train rolled on through the night, the snow falling heavier now, blanketing the world outside in white silence. Inside, the lantern light swayed gently, casting golden ripples across his face. The old samurai whispered to himself, barely audible, as though speaking to the snow outside. Perhaps this train will carry me to where the wind no longer stirs. He rested his head back against the seat. The sound of the wheels on the tracks became a lullaby. Da-dum, 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 his breathing slowed. The tea had cooled beside him, untouched since he boarded. The mother and child across the aisle stirred briefly, and the child blinked at the old man before smiling softly and drifting back to sleep. The samurai smiled too. Children untouched by the weight of memory could sleep through any storm. He closed his eyes again. In his mind, he stood on a hill at dawn. The mist rolled through the valley, and his armor gleamed with dew. Eiko stood there too, her hair lifted gently by the wind. He reached for her hand. But as always, the dream faded just as his fingers brushed hers. The rhythm of the train softened further. Outside, the snow grew thicker. The samurai's reflection in the glass seemed to age with every mile, until it no longer looked like a warrior at all, but simply an old man carried by the rails of time. When the train passed through a tunnel, darkness filled the car. The lights dimmed, and for a few seconds there was nothing, only sound and breath. Then, as the light returned, the samurai opened his eyes and saw not his reflection, but a soft glow on the horizon. A village, perhaps. Or maybe something beyond the mountains where the snow never melts. He couldn't tell. But for the first time in many years, he did not feel lost. He placed a hand gently on his sword and whispered, "Thank you, old friend. You may rest now." The train continued its journey into the endless white. And within that slow, peaceful rhythm, the old samurai began to drift, not into sleep, but into something far quieter, something eternal. The train moved on. The snow fell, and the world remained beautifully silent. The snow village and the memory of Eiko, the train, moved slowly through the valley, where the night sky hung low over the mountains like a deep blue curtain. Snow kept falling, steady, soft, endless, brushing against the windows in delicate patterns, as if the sky itself were painting memories across the glass. Inside the carriage, most passengers had fallen asleep. The hum of the train, the warmth of the lanterns, and the whisper of snow outside blended together like a lullaby only silence could sing. The old samurai sat quietly, his eyes half closed. His breathing matched the rhythm of the rails, steady and slow. Each sound, each vibration beneath his feet felt like a reminder of time itself, moving forward, always forward, carrying everything and everyone toward the horizon. He thought of the years when time seemed to move slower, when every sunrise carried a promise and every sunset a prayer. He thought of Kyoto in spring, the plum blossoms in full bloom, and the soft laughter that used to drift from the tea houses by the river. But most of all, he thought of her Eiko. He remembered the first time he saw her, long before war had carved scars across his soul. She was standing beneath a cherry tree, holding a lantern in her hands, waiting for her father's return from the city. Her kimono was pale blue, the color of morning fog, and her eyes held a quiet kindness, the kind that needed no words. That was decades ago. Now her face lived only in the space between heartbeats. The train began to slow. A small station appeared outside, hidden beneath thick layers of snow. A wooden sign, half covered in frost, bore the faint characters for Shiragawa Village. The old samurai stood and reached for his sword. The motion was slow, deliberate, an old ritual, a memory of respect. He stepped onto the platform. The cold met him gently, wrapping around him like an old friend. Snow crunched beneath his sandals. The air smelled of cedar and smoke. No one else stepped off the train. When the doors closed behind him, the sound faded quickly into the distance, leaving him alone beneath the falling snow. He looked around. The village was small, just a few houses with warm lights glowing through paper windows. A river ran nearby, half frozen, murmuring softly to itself. He began to walk. Each step left a mark that disappeared behind him, swallowed by fresh snow. He followed the path up a gentle hill, where a shrine stood beneath an ancient pine tree. The wood of the gate was worn, the prayer papers fluttering faintly in the wind. He stopped there. The snow fell around him, filling the world with silence. And then a sound, soft, familiar, a bell. It came from somewhere near the river, a gentle ringing, delicate and rhythmic, like the laughter of someone he once knew. He followed it, guided by the sound and the faint glow of a lantern through the mist. By the water's edge stood a small house.
Its roof heavy with snow, its windows glowing with the golden light of a fire within. The bell hung above the doorway, swaying gently in the wind. He stepped closer, and for a moment he saw her. Not clearly, not as a body of flesh and shadow, but as a memory shaped by light. Aiko, standing in the doorway, her lantern lifted just as it had been all those years ago beneath the cherry tree. She smiled softly, the same smile that once calmed every storm inside him. The samurai did not speak. He simply bowed deeply, as he had the first time he had confessed his love. And though there was no sound in the air, he heard her voice within his heart. "You have traveled long enough, my love. Rest now." The wind carried her words away like a gentle sigh. He stepped closer, but as he did, the light within the house flickered, then faded. Only the glow of the river remained, reflecting the moon and snow together in a silver dream. He stood there for a long time, listening to the quiet. Then he smiled. The bell above the door rang again once softly, and he whispered, "Thank you for waiting." He turned away from the house, feeling neither sadness nor longing, only peace. The train would return soon, he thought, and when it did, he would board it once more, but not to travel anywhere, only to ride until the sound of the wheels became silence. He walked back through the snow, his footprints vanishing behind him. The mountains looked softer now, their edges blurred by mist. The lanterns of the village flickered like stars caught between heaven and earth. As he reached the station, he looked up and saw the first light of dawn spreading faintly across the sky. The night was ending, but the peace within him felt eternal. He sat once more on the empty platform. The wind brushed past, carrying the faint scent of cedar and river water. He closed his eyes, and for the first time in decades he felt no weight in his chest, no sorrow, no regret, only quiet, only stillness. Only the soft sound of the train returning in the distance like a heartbeat calling him home. The journey through the mountains, the train returned just as the dawn began to fade behind the peaks. Its whistle echoed softly through the valley, rolling across the river like a call from another world. The old samurai stood on the platform, his cloak dusted with snow. He bowed once to the mountain, an old gesture of gratitude before stepping aboard. Inside, the car was nearly empty again. The same mother and child had already disembarked, leaving only a few quiet souls scattered among the seats. The light from the windows was silver now, soft and cold, like the reflection of clouds on water. He took the same seat beside the window, the one where his reflection had kept him company before. As the train began to move, the landscape slowly transformed, the flat white fields giving way to steep cliffs and frozen rivers. Pine trees lined the slopes like watchful sentinels, their branches heavy with snow. The train curved through tunnels and across bridges, its rhythm slower now, as if it, too, respected the silence of the mountains. The samurai leaned his head against the glass. Outside, the snow fell thicker, muffling the world. Inside, his breathing matched the steady song of the rails, a quiet pattern, deep and even like meditation. He thought again of Aiko, but now the image of her face was softer, not a wound, but a light. In the quiet rhythm of the train, her memory did not ache. It simply existed, calm and beautiful, like a lantern glowing in the fog. He remembered their last day together long ago. The war had ended, and the fields were quiet again. He had laid down his sword, believing peace would fill the world as spring fills the river banks. But peace, he learned, is not found outside, it must be found within. Aiko had understood this long before he did. She had touched his hand then and said, "When the battle inside your heart ends, you will hear the sound of silence again." He had not understood her words then, but now, as the mountains drifted by, he felt their meaning settle deep inside him. The train entered a long tunnel. Darkness wrapped around him like a soft blanket. For a moment there was nothing, no snow, no trees, no sound. Only the low hum of the train, steady and calm. In that darkness the samurai felt as though he were floating. His memories became light, drifting like dust in a beam of sun. He saw flashes of faces, laughter, cherry blossoms, rain, all blending into a single feeling, gratitude. When the train emerged into daylight again, the sun had begun to rise over the mountain peaks. Golden light spilled across the snow, turning it into a sea of diamonds. The samurai's eyes softened. He whispered to himself, "Even the coldest snow glows when touched by the morning sun." The words hung in the air, quiet and warm. Across the aisle, an old monk sat silently, his eyes closed in meditation. The rosary beads in his hands clicked softly with the motion of the train. After a while, the monk opened his eyes and smiled. "You travel far, old warrior," he said. "Where does your heart lead you?" The samurai bowed his head politely. "I follow the tracks until they end," he replied. "Ah," said the monk, nodding. "Then you are very close." The monk returned to his meditation, and the samurai looked out again at the mountains, tall, unmoving, eternal. He thought of all he had carried in life, the weight of honor, duty, loss, love. But in that moment the weight felt lighter, not gone, just softened, as though it had melted into the snow around him. He closed his eyes. The steady rhythm of the train became a heartbeat. The hum of the rails became a song, and in the spaces between sounds he found stillness, a silence so complete it felt infinite. The train continued its climb higher into the mountains. Outside, clouds drifted low, brushing against the windows. The peaks disappeared into mist, and the world seemed to dissolve into white. The samurai smiled faintly. He had lived long enough to see empires rise and fall, friends fade into memory, and time erode all things. But now, as the train moved through the clouds, he realized nothing truly fades. It only changes form. Love becomes light, pain becomes peace, and the end becomes another beginning. He rested his head against the seat, eyes half closed, feeling the vibration beneath him, gentle, endless, like breathing. As the train passed through one final bend, he saw it, a lake nestled high in the mountains, its surface still and mirror-like, reflecting the pale sky. Cherry trees lined the shore, their bare branches reaching upward. But even without blossoms, they were beautiful. The samurai watched in silence. He remembered walking with Eiko by a lake just like this one, decades ago. He remembered the way her reflection danced on the water. A tear, small, unbidden, slid down his cheek, but it did not fall from sorrow, it fell from peace. He whispered softly, "The train will stop soon." The monk across from him smiled again, eyes still closed as if hearing the thought. "All trains stop, old friend," the monk murmured, "but the journey never ends." The samurai nodded. Outside, the lake faded slowly behind the veil of snow. The tracks curved downward, leading toward another valley, quieter, softer, untouched by time. He placed a hand over his heart, feeling its slow rhythm, still beating, still alive, but ready to rest. The snow fell thicker now, swirling in gentle spirals that seemed to dance with the train's motion. Each flake a memory, each moment a farewell. And in the rhythm of the rails, the samurai heard not the sound of metal, but the sound of peace. The river of dreams the train had been moving for hours, winding endlessly through the white silence of the mountains. Now, the snow had stopped. Only a soft mist floated outside the window, glowing silver in the morning light. The old samurai sat still, his eyes half closed, his sword resting beside him like an old friend finally allowed to sleep. He had not spoken in a long time. He did not need to. Every sound, the low hum of the train, the distant cry of a hawk, the faint whistle that rose and faded, was enough. Each moment felt like a breath between worlds. The monk had quietly left the car at the last small station. Before stepping off, he had bowed to the samurai and whispered, "All journeys lead to stillness. Remember, the destination is not a place, but peace itself." Those words lingered like incense in the air long after the monk was gone. Now the train began to slow. Through the mist, a soft blue river appeared, winding between the snowy hills, shining like liquid glass. The samurai opened his eyes fully, watching it. It looked almost like a dream, endless, gentle, eternal. The train followed the river for many miles. At times it ran beside it, at times above it, crossing over small bridges where the reflection of the train shimmered below. The samurai could see his reflection there too, faintly, rippling with the motion of the water. His hair now white, his face lined with age, but his eyes, still holding the same quiet flame of the young warrior he once was. He smiled softly. He remembered when he first saw this river, decades ago, returning from battle. He had ridden on horseback along its banks, armor still heavy with the dust of war. Eiko had been waiting for him on the far side. She had run to him then, her white kimono flowing like water, her laughter soft as bells. He had not known then that such a simple sound could feel like home. Now, as he watched the river flow beside the train, he could almost hear her voice again, not as a memory, but as music. "The river never stops," she had once said. "It just finds new ways to move." The samurai whispered to himself, "And so must I." The train reached a small wooden bridge. Beneath it, the river widened into a lake, calm, deep, shining faintly with mist. A sign appeared outside the window, faded and almost hidden by snow. "Kawamura Station, last stop." The samurai exhaled slowly. He reached for the sword beside him, the same one that had once ended wars, now dull with age and peace. He wrapped it carefully in silk cloth, tied it, and placed it under his seat. It was not meant to travel further. The train began to slow, the rhythmic sound of its wheels fading into stillness. With each passing second, he felt the weight of the world growing lighter, not because he was leaving it, but because he had finally learned to hold it gently. When the train stopped, the door opened with a sigh. Cool air drifted in, smelling faintly of pine and river mist. The samurai rose slowly. His movements were calm, graceful, like the motion of falling petals. He bowed once to the empty car, then stepped outside. The platform was small, only a few planks of wood, half covered in snow. Beyond it, a narrow path led toward the riverbank. And there, waiting quietly at the edge of the water, was a small wooden boat. No one was in it, yet the lantern on its bow was already lit, a warm golden glow in the pale light of dawn. The samurai smiled. He knew without question that the boat was waiting for him. He walked slowly down the path. Each step sank softly into the snow, leaving prints that filled almost instantly with new flakes. The world was quiet, so quiet he could hear his own heartbeat blending with the faint whisper of the water. When he reached the river's edge, he paused. The current moved gently, like a breath. He looked back once toward the train, its smoke fading into the mist. It would soon depart again, carrying new souls toward their own destinations. His journey, however, was ending here. He stepped into the boat. The wood rocked lightly beneath his feet, then settled, steady and sure. He sat down, resting his hands in his lap. For a long moment he simply breathed. The river began to move slow, silent, pulling the boat downstream. No oar touched the water. No hand guided its path. It was as though the river itself knew the way. The samurai closed his eyes. He could feel the warmth of the lantern's glow on his face. He could hear the soft sound of the current like the distant echo of a lullaby. The wind carried faint notes of something sweet, the scent of plum blossoms, though none grew nearby. And in that scent he felt her presence again. Echo. Not as a ghost, not as a memory, but as peace itself. He whispered, "I am coming home." Time drifted. The river widened, the mist thickened. The mountains faded behind him until all that remained was light, golden, endless, soft as morning. The samurai's head tilted slightly. A faint smile touched his lips. His breathing slowed, then matched the rhythm of the river. In that stillness he did not vanish. He became part of the flow, part of the silence, part of the peace. The boat drifted onward, its lantern glowing brighter against the mist. And far away, on the distant horizon, the sun finally broke through, bathing the river in light. The samurai had reached his final station. Not an ending, just a return, like a river meeting the sea. All journeys, the monk's voice whispered in the wind, end where they began, in the heart. The light faded softly. The river continued to flow, and the world, quiet, timeless, exhaled. The eternal morning, the river had carried the boat far into the mist. The world of sound and form had faded behind him. No more mountains, no more train, no more winter wind. Only light remained, soft, weightless, and endless. It was not blinding nor distant. It was warm, like the first breath after long sleep. The samurai drifted within it, not as a man, but as a memory being gently unwrapped. There was no fear, no ache of the sword at his side, only the rhythm of his breath, quiet and steady, as if the universe itself was breathing with him. He could still hear the faint sound of the train, not as wheels, but as a pulse, a heartbeat echoing through time. The sound merged with the flow of the river, with the hush of unseen wind, with the whisper of his beloved's voice. "You have come far," she said. He opened his eyes, and there, standing at the river bank, veiled in morning light, was Echo. Her form was soft, almost woven from the same light that surrounded her. She smiled, the same gentle smile that had once greeted him after battle. Her eyes shimmered like the surface of a lake at sunrise. "It has been a long road," he said. "Every step brought you home," she replied. He looked around. The mist was rising. Beneath it, the world was awakening, fields of soft grass, a lake reflecting a sky of golden dawn, cherry trees just beginning to bloom. He could hear birds in the distance, not calling, but singing softly, as if the day itself were whispering. The boat touched the shore. Echo held out her hand. He reached for it. The moment their fingers met, the years melted away. His armor, his sword, his age, all of it dissolved like snow under the first light of morning. He stood tall again, clothed not in steel, but in calm white robes. His heart felt lighter than it ever had before. They walked together through the field. The grass swayed gently, brushing against their feet. Far above, clouds moved slowly across a sky too beautiful to describe. No sound of battle, no noise of trains, only peace. "Is this death?" the samurai asked softly. "No," Echo whispered. "This is remembering." They reached the edge of a small hill overlooking the valley. From here, he could see the river curving through the land like a silver thread, the same river that had carried him here. He realized it was not water that had guided his boat. It was time itself. The journey had not been about reaching a place, but about letting go. Every sound, every face, every breath had been a step toward this single, quiet moment. He closed his eyes. In the darkness behind them, he saw his life unfold, not as stories of war and duty, but as patterns of light. Each person he had met was a flicker in that great river of memory. Each choice a ripple that spread until it reached this calm shore. Echo turned toward him, her voice soft as wind through bamboo. "Rest now. You have traveled far enough." The samurai exhaled slowly, deeply. He felt the weight of his final breath leave his chest, not as loss, but as freedom. When he inhaled again, it was not air he drew in, but peace. He smiled. "Then let this be my final sunrise." The light began to shift, brighter, warmer. The world glowed as though painted in gold. And then, without sound or movement, the samurai and Echo faded gently into it. Not gone, just part of the morning. Below, the river continued to flow. A faint breeze carried petals across its surface, spinning them like tiny lanterns. In the distance, a train whistle echoed, soft, far away, as if the world itself was remembering the traveler who had once ridden its rails. As the sound faded, the listener, you are left with silence. The silence of the earth waking, the silence of peace found at last. And in that silence the heart slows, the breath deepens, the weight of the day dissolves. You are not just hearing his story. You are becoming it, the calm, the letting go, the river, the morning. "Sleep now," the wind seems to whisper. "Your journey too will lead you home." And as night gives way to light, somewhere beyond time, beyond sound, a samurai rests forever in the calm of his last sunrise. The end. Sunrise, take a deep breath and let it go. You've walked a long road tonight, through quiet stations and silver rivers, through snow and memory and light. And just like the old samurai, you have finally arrived where all journeys end in peace. Listen to the silence now. That's not emptiness you're hearing. That's the sound of stillness, the world holding its breath, waiting for you to rest. Feel your body soften, your shoulders melt into the bed, your heartbeat slowing, matching the gentle rhythm of the train that once carried our traveler through the night. Each breath you take is a step closer to calm. Each exhale, a letting go of everything you carried today. You've done enough. You've fought your battles, faced your storms, and just like him, you've earned your peace. Imagine for a moment that you are there standing beside the quiet river under a pale sunrise. The air is cool, the water shines like glass, and every sound, every whisper of wind feels like a lullaby written just for you. No need to move, no need to try. The world is already turning softly, cradling you in its rhythm. You are safe here. You are home here. And as your eyes grow heavier, let the last image linger, a small wooden boat, drifting slowly downstream, its lantern glowing gold against the mist. That's your soul floating toward rest, toward warmth, toward light. Let go now, let the weight of your thoughts slip away like leaves upon the river. Let your breath become the tide, gentle and deep, rising and falling in perfect peace. The story is ending, but peace is just beginning. Tonight, may your dreams be quiet and kind. May you find yourself in places made of light and memory. And may your heart, like the samurai's, know what it means to rest without fear. You are safe, you are loved, and you are exactly where you need to be. Pause, soft background wind now, close your eyes. The river is calling, the train has stopped. The lantern burns softly in the dark. It's time to let the story go and let the dream begin. Good night.